Retailers have faced tough challenges with the 3 lockdowns over the past year, but they have proven to be agile and robust in the way they responded to the pandemic, with the move to trading online stepped up quite dramatically. Now that showrooms are once again open for business and restrictions have been lifted, customer traffic has risen and new and used car sales are increasing. Today, we're speaking with Auto Trader's Commercial Director Ian Plummer, and we will be asking him what Auto Trader did to support retailers through the pandemic and what it's doing now. We will also discuss what the market might look like as we move into the second half of the year. Hello Ian, and thank you for joining us.
Pleasure to be with you.
Ian, can you tell me, how have you been supporting retailers over the past period, and what are you doing to help them at the moment?
Well, from the very beginning of the pandemic, we made a conscious decision that we'd do absolutely all we could to support our retailer partners to manage the challenges of COVID-19. We knew also we needed to act really fast. So we offered, I think, a level of support unprecedented in our 44-year history, and we focused on 4 main areas. The first was financial support, of course, but also actionable insights, what I'd like to think were very relevant product developments, and lastly, marketing in support of our retailer partners. So if I go through them quickly, financial support, we made our advertising of new and used cars free during the first 2 months of lockdown 1, April and May, extended periods of discounts beyond that, delayed payment support as well through that lockdown, and then unfortunately, obviously the same thing in lockdown 2, free again in December, extended payment terms for November. Again, unfortunately, lockdown 3, more of the same, free in February and so on, more extended payment terms. So summing that up, in terms of financial support, we've had free periods in essence over a period of 4 months, roughly, out of a period of about 10. That's come at considerable cost to us, of course, full costs that we've been incurring during that period, but virtually zero revenue. But absolutely the right thing to do, I'm certain, to support our retailer partners. Those other angles I talked about, I think were just as important. That data and insight point I touched on, given how foggy it felt, and it really did feel, didn't it, back in April last year, so hard to see through the fog back then, but all the way through, and even now, it's those actionable insights to understand what the market's doing, what the consumer trends are, and so on, that have really been valuable to our retailer partners. We've done, I think, 40 customer webinars during that period. We had around 600 retailers on each webinar, so huge engagement, really relevant stuff, I think. And in terms of product, when we were exiting lockdown 1, we were already ready at that point with the kind of tools that have been invaluable ever since, such as click and collect, home delivery options, instant video options that are tickable on the adverts of cars on our site, new and used cars and so on. So that enabled retailers to embrace what became obviously massively useful as they exited lockdown 1, but absolutely essential in lockdowns 2 and 3, and I think still certainly so now. And lastly, that point around marketing. So investing in marketing seemed pointless from a brand point of view, but fundamentally relevant to embrace the need to ensure that consumers knew that automotive was open for business. So we promoted the fact that retailers were out there open for business and able to sell cars. I think all of that has been a major contributing factor in keeping retailer business performing during the pandemic, whether in lockdown or into lockdowns, or in this current period, hopefully out of lockdowns. We've provided huge amounts of leads, around 750,000 leads during lockdown 1, just as one example. Lockdown 3, it's been astounding how well retailers have performed. And when we look at our proxy sales data, retailers are generally performing at around 80-90% of, let's say, in inverted commas, normal times. So it really, I think, is testament not just to our support, of course, but huge resilience, hard work, and entrepreneurial spirit from those retailers that have done, I think, fantastically well battling through these challenges.
It has been quite amazing, the speed and agility that the motor trade has adapted to, some very, very difficult trading environments. Where are you seeing the market going as we sort of come out of lockdown and we're seeing some sort of normality? Is this the new normal, or are you seeing that we're going to develop further towards the rest of the year?
Well, I think the current levels of demand we're seeing are huge. We, in March, for example, saw around 70 million cross-platform visits to our marketplace. That's the highest ever we've recorded. And it's around 27% up on March 2019. We have to refer now to 2019 numbers more so than to 2020 numbers for obvious reasons. And we're seeing huge time spent on our site. That's around 25% up, I think, at the moment. Lead volumes are growing in March, I think, to around 90%, 91 precisely, if I remember rightly. So there's huge levels of engagement from consumers. That's continuing in April. We're seeing extremely strong sales performance in what I describe as our proxy sales data, which is the reference of cars taken on, removed from Auto Trader. And when you map back against SMMT data, when that's available, it's always very close to reality. When we look at that for April, retailers are up anywhere between around 30 to 40%. I'll hold my bets on where it's going to finish, but it's tracking extremely positively at the moment. New cars are equally looking very strong. So as things stand today, I think we're seeing a level of demand, which is no doubt likely to taper down in the months to come. But when we look back, I guess, at the April period last year, when we couldn't see through that fog I described, we got then to June and thought that, well, this is pent up demand, it'll last for a month or so. That was the view of many people, at least. We were pretty confident the demand level would be sustained. And from lockdown 1 through to lockdown 2 into those lockdown periods, we saw a level of demand on our platform around 25% growth on prior year. Retailer numbers, equally in terms of sales, were up each month on prior year in that period. So I'm pretty confident that we should look forward to something similar in the months ahead. The challenge might be supply. New car supply with microchip issues and so on that we're all hearing of might affect, obviously, new cars, but actually have a trickle-down effect onto used. Firstly, positively in terms of pricing. Secondly, though, potentially it'll reduce the amount of available used cars that are in the market because some of the channels that will feed used cars, such as part exchanges and so on for new car buyers, might slow down. So there's some, if you like, draws on speed there, or some brakes on the speed of progression. But generally speaking, we're seeing consumers who are embracing car ownership more than ever. There are lots of areas of feedback. We have research around the consumer appetite for cars that is only growing. Affordability levels are growing. Confidence in buying a next car is well up, for example, on pre-pandemic periods even. Bank of England's sort of data points to a very high level of household finance health, private space and avoiding public transport. All these themes, add them all together, and I think you've got the makings of a very positive environment for car ownership and car buying in the months to come, pending, obviously, the health of the supply to feed that demand.
And Ian, what happens if we see, God forbid, a lockdown for?
Well, let's all agree on the fact that it's God forbid we don't go back into that situation. I think retailers, though, have done brilliantly in managing their way through the challenges that they've faced so far. The industry, I think, is massively more prepared, has embraced digital in a way that probably needed to be accelerated. Heaven forbid it needed to happen in this way, but it's really been something that's, I think, very positive for the industry. It's helped the consumer. Consumers clearly embracing the opportunity of engaging in more digital jobs to be done. They clearly also love the seeing, touching, driving, smelling of cars, new and used. So they're embracing the chance to get back into retailers right now. So let's hope that continues. But as the industry has embraced the digital retailing opportunity and had to, I think it's very likely that we'll continue that journey. And as we do so, I'd like to think that we'll be in a good position to weather any storm that's thrown at the industry, whether that be a lockdown or something similar.
Fantastic. Ian, thank you so much indeed for your time today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.